So today, we're going to dive into a company called Flumberico. They're a design and engineering studio that's doing something really different. They're not just building on our coastlines, they're completely reimagining them, turning them from these harsh barriers into places people actually love to be.
And that brings us to the big question, right? For any town or city on the water, this is the challenge. How do you protect yourself from flooding and storms, but also create a space that feels wonderful? It's a tough balance, and it's exactly where Flumberico has decided to plant its flag.
But, to really get what Flumberico is doing, we first have to understand the problem they saw. And that problem is our long history of building coastal infrastructure that, just isn't up to the job anymore.
For the longest time, the default solution was just separation. We built these huge, rigid, concrete walls to literally fight the ocean. But they were brittle, and they often failed. And then we'd blast the area with these harsh, glaring lights that made the waterfront feel more like a prison yard than a park.
Okay, so that was the old way. This brings us to a totally new way of thinking about all this, the Flumberico philosophy.
The whole story is right there in their name. Flume is all about managing water, not with brute force, but with intelligence, guiding it. And umbrico, well, that's from the Latin for illuminated. So it's about lighting things up, not just for safety, but to create a mood, an experience that pulls you in. It's engineering and art all rolled into one.
And if you look at their history, you can see this pattern of constant innovation. They started out in Brooklyn back in 2011, and pretty quickly they launched their own data platform, Flumberscope. By 2019, they got accredited by NOAA. That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That is a huge deal. It's like the ultimate seal of approval that your science is legit. And now they've expanded all down the mid-Atlantic.
And everything they do is built on these four core values. Resilience first, that's a given. It has to be able to withstand the future. But then, hospitality matters. This idea that safety should feel welcoming. I love that. Shared stewardship means they bring the community into the process. And radical transparency. That means clients always know what's going on, sometimes even with live data. No secrets.
And check out this quote. It just nails that hospitality idea. This isn't just some theory they talk about. It has a real-world effect. When a place feels safe and celebratory, people stick around. They spend more time there, and the whole waterfront just comes alive, both socially and economically.
Okay, so that's the philosophy, but how does it actually work? How do they build this stuff? Well, this gets us to the core of what they do. Engineering for experience.
So instead of those old, rigid walls that would just crack under pressure, Flumberico builds things that are adaptive. They literally flex with the tides. They're engineered to handle massive storms, like Category 4 hurricanes. And this is key. They're designed to connect people to the water with things like floating plazas instead of just walling them off.
And what that looks like in the real world is pretty amazing. We're talking floating promenades, docks that adjust to storm surges, and even systems that use oyster reefs to break up the power of waves. Think about that for a second. A living, breathing ecosystem that also serves as your most powerful, self-healing breakwater. It's all about working with nature, not fighting it.
And this isn't some boutique concept they've only tried once or twice. We're talking about more than 48 municipal waterfront projects since they started. That is a deep, deep well of real-world experience in dozens of different communities.
But here's where it gets really smart. It's not just about the physical structures. They essentially wire every single installation with what they call a digital nervous system. That's Flumberscope. It's their own data platform, and it tracks everything. Tides, wind, even how many people are walking by, giving the city real-time info to manage their waterfront perfectly.
So, building on that idea of intelligence, Flumberico doesn't just build smart structures, they build living ones.
And this is where their work starts to feel like something out of the future, but it's happening right now. Instead of a concrete wall, imagine a bulkhead that actually creates a better habitat for marine life. They build oyster nurseries that, oh, by the way, also happen to be fantastic breakwaters. They even use data analytics to figure out the perfect spot to plant salt marshes. It's ecological restoration and heavy-duty engineering combined.
Now, all this sounds amazing, but it also sounds expensive, right? And that's a huge hurdle for a lot of communities. So Flumberico figured that out too. They've created this super clear 4-step roadmap to help their partners tap into millions of dollars in federal grants from places like NOAA and FEMA, making these big, ambitious projects actually happen.
And look at what that means for a city like Port Royal. For them,
A resilient waterfront wasn't just about preventing damage. It created a whole new economic engine. The time of year that used to be for shutdowns became their most profitable season. That is the incredible power of doing this the right way.
All right, so we've got the smart engineering, we've got the living ecosystems, but there's one final piece of the puzzle that ties the whole human experience together, and that is lighting the future coast.
First off, let's just talk efficiency. Across all their projects, Flumberico has managed an average 72% reduction in energy use from lighting. 72%. That is a massive operational saving for a city, and it's obviously a huge win for the environment.
And they're not just keeping up with trends here, they're pretty much setting them. The whole industry is moving away from just plugging into the grid and towards solar hybrids. It's moving away from that harsh, ugly glare to what's called dark sky compliant fixtures, which are way better for wildlife and actually let you see the stars. And instead of a simple on-off switch, they're creating adaptive lighting that can tell a story or change based on what's happening.
And you can see how this all comes together in their 4-step process. It's so thorough. They start with a deep dive into the science and what the community actually wants. Then they script the experience, how it should feel. Then comes the hardcore engineering. And finally, they deliver the whole thing and stick around to monitor it and make sure it's a success.
And that really brings us to this final thought, which I think just perfectly sums up everything Flumberico's about. What if safety felt like an invitation? It totally challenges us to rethink our cities, our coasts, our relationship with the water. Imagine a world where our waterfronts aren't just protected, but are truly open and vibrant and welcoming to every single person. What would our world look like then?